The revelations that the US has been spying on European countries continue to antagonise its key allies. Spain is the latest country to be caught in the NSA's crosshairs. It's summoned the American ambassador to answer claims that more than 60 million phone calls were tapped in 1 month. Now, President Obama is considering extra constraints on intelligence gathering. But New Zealand's Defence Minister wasn't too concerned his country might be a target of the American spooks.
We don't believe it would be occurring, and look, quite frankly, there'd be nothing that anyone could hear in our private conversations that we wouldn't be prepared to share publicly. And cartoon in our local paper in our capital, Wellington, showed an analyst potentially listening to the communiques from New Zealand and a big stream of Z's coming out. So, you know, I don't think New Zealand's got anything to worry about, and we have high trust in our relationships with the US.
Well, Dr. Adam Lockyer is a lecturer in American politics and foreign policy at the US Studies, and he joins us, US Studies Centre. He joins us now. Adam, thanks very much for coming on.
Good evening.
How much damage is this causing the US, do you think?
It's causing serious damage across Europe. You have that already American stocks were pretty low in Europe. From 2008 levels, when you saw 200,000 Germans packing into Treason Garden to see the then candidate Obama, right through to July this year when he was struggling to get 5,000 people out into Berlin to see him give a speech. So the value of America across Europe was already on a downward trend, and this has just added to that momentum.
Now, the White House has come out overnight and acknowledged the need for additional constraints on US intelligence. Yet the man who exposed these secrets that led to this rethink overnight is Edward Snowden, and he is still considered a traitor in the US. Now, if the US policy on surveillance changes, are they acknowledging that Snowden was right to release this information?
And this is why the politics has been so sluggish on this issue in the US, where earlier on, Congress people and the White House in particular was really hesitant to associate themselves with Edward Snowden and pick up the baton and run with this and push forward with any sort of legislation that was going to rein in America's intelligence arms. Now there seems to be a little bit more water under the bridge, and they get to a point where they have to take some action, and now they're going to have to try and do whatever they can to try and rein in the NSA.
So does Snowden then become a patriot rather than a traitor? Do they suddenly start dropping charges of stealing government secrets against him if they change the laws because of his leaks?
That's doubtful. I mean, so they've thrown the Espionage Act of 1917 at him, and those charges are unlikely to be dropped.
OK, so what is Congress likely to do now?
Congress is split on this issue. They had a vote earlier in the year in July, went up for a House vote, and it was a narrow run thing, only 15 votes in it, and it was split both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, straight down the middle. So when this does come up for a vote again, a bill is going to be introduced on Tuesday, their time, and it's probably going to be a very tight run thing again.
Peter, I'm interested in your view on this. How do you think, say, yourself and your cabinet colleagues would have felt like if you found out that John Howard's phone had been tapped years ago?
I think we would have been totally relaxed about it in the John Keys approach. And
very dull man, John Howard, wasn't he?
Sorry?
He was a very dull man.
Well, I tell you what, he had a certain common sense about him. And let's face it, I mean, the Europeans can complain about spying. Tell me which European countries haven't been involved in spying, going back 100 years or more. I mean, there's a long history of spying, around the world and certainly in Europe. So I think it's just, completely overblown. Our guest tonight, talks about Obama coming off a bit of a high, but I think he was on a high when he was first elected. But I would think he's more back to the pack rather than, seeing any significant cutback in relations between Europe and the Americans. I thought Angela Merkel was very sensible when she was asked about it, because she said, well, let's now see if we can get on and, repair the trust sort of thing. And I thought that was rather more sensible. But naturally enough, some people are whipping it up, so she had to be a bit careful how she played it. She's a political, very political person, and a pretty canny one at that. So I think it'll just fade away, and so it should, quite frankly.
Jeff, do you think this is overblown?
I don't agree with you on that, Peter. I think these are the sorts of things that you don't want to happen in the type of world we live in today. I mean, obviously there's a change in the balance of power. You've got the emergence of China and India. You've got some continuing instability in parts of Asia with Japan and China, etc. This is the very time when you want your major ally, the United States, to be playing the game very carefully and very appropriately and very properly. And I think Peter made the point that Angela Merkel said that we need to repair the trust. In other words, the trust was lost. I think these sorts of issues are always important, but in the type of world we live in today, they're especially important. And rather than adopt the attitude Peter's adopting, I would hope our government would, through the embassy and through our links to the United States, sending a very clear message to them, sort your act out because you're not helping anyone.
So, Adam, how does the US repair the trust? Because if they are to repair the trust, are they going to have to go further than they would have normally wanted to in curtailing their surveillance activities?
So they're going to have... They've already... Obama's been busy making phone calls to the world leaders who have apparently been spied upon and have been taking more of a diplomatic route to try to repair some of these bridges. At the same time, there's been a reinvestigation.
Of course, they're probably paranoid those phone calls were being recorded as well.
Exactly, they probably were recorded as well. So, but at the same time, there's going to be legislation brought into Congress. Obama's already announced a review of the spy agencies, and so these are going to be sort of baby steps towards repairing trust, and it's probably going to be a longer-term thing.
President Obama says he was going to review the surveillance anyway, but would he have done that unless this had really been brought on by Edward Snowden? What's your view on that?
Well, so he announced this earlier on in the year after Edward Snowden first released these disclosures about the White House, in particular NSA, spying upon American citizens. So that's where he was really concerned. And even today, where this gets political traction in DC, it's on spying within America's borders rather than spying overseas.
Mike, you were in the US recently. Were you getting any sense of how this was resonating with the Americans?
Well, I don't know. It could be the cohort of people that I mix with. I was with a lot of journalists and such like who are very interested in the whole thing.
Who loves surveillance?
My central question here is this actually something all that unusual? Or have they just committed the sin of being caught? And are all nations to some extent doing this? And does modern technology simply make it a lot easier to do? So let me ask the expert here.
Yeah.
Are they doing anything that out of the ordinary?
Well, it's not that it's out of the ordinary that they're doing this. It's just the scope and the ability of the United States, which is out of proportion to all other countries. So so all other countries do this, but it's mostly the United States who's getting the blame because they have the scope and the capability to do it.
All right. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, guys. We'll have to wrap it there. But thanks to all of our panellists on the drum tonight.